Alrighty, gang. Here's to nights that turn into mornings and friends that turn into family. Cheers!
Happy birthday to you.
Hello. Welcome to the Friendship IRL podcast. I'm your host, Alex Alexander, and each week we explore what's working and what's not in our friendships, community, and connections. Have you ever wished you could sit down and have a conversation about what is really going on in your friendships? Well, you found your people. Join us as we dive into real-life stories and explore new ways to approach these connections. Together, we're reimagining the rules of friendship. I'm always out here watching trends of like the dialogue around friendship and community and connection. And something that I've seen come up over and over and over recently is this idea of a couch friend or an errand friend. And if you haven't heard this term, then here are some signs you might be wishing for a couch friend or an errand friend. You are wondering, like, where can I find a friend who doesn't drain my social battery? Or maybe you find yourself saying, I just wish I had a friend that I could kind of fold in to like life's responsibilities and it didn't feel like a big ordeal. Or maybe you find yourself saying, I really wish I had a friend that I could just do nothing with. We just lay around on the couch, lose track of time, chill, where we don't need plans. If you've ever thought any of those things, then, well, you're out there wishing you had a couch friend or what I call an errand friend. They're slightly different, right? The couch friend is somebody you just lay around and do nothing with. So there's also this wish for relaxation and unstructured time. And the errand friend is somebody I think that you can kind of fold into life's responsibilities. Again, when you feel like you can't find that unstructured time. But at the core of it, I think there's so much similarity and overlap. Like what you're looking for is for someone where you can just let them into your life. You can simply just exist and be accepted and seen and supported and spend time with someone else, whether that is laying on the couch or running errands and doing life's responsibilities. That's what we're looking for. So today, I want to talk about this idea of finding a couch friend, because a lot of the discourse I see is about wanting to find this elusive person out there. Like, if I could just find a couch friend. And the more I watch the reels and the TikToks and I read the articles and I see the posts, the more I think to myself, like, okay, so you want a couch friend. You need to be a couch friend. You want an errand friend? You need to be an errand friend. You can't just keep thinking that this elusive person is going to walk into your life and suddenly everything is going to change. We do this in a lot of areas of our life. It's like thinking, when I find the right meal plan, when I find the right workout, when I find the right financial advisor, right? We're looking out into the ether for the solution to this life change that we want, this new version of ourselves. When in reality, we all know that the way to become that new person is to change our own habits and mindset and actions. The change is within us. So as much as you think that finding this elusive couch friend is what's going to solve the problem, really, you need to put out couch friend energy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What shifts can you make to be more of a couch friend? Because I think that when this is the energy, you're going to suddenly find so many people want this, they'll lean in. So what is a couch friend? A couch friend is a person that you feel totally at ease around, who never makes you feel like you need to impress them. You can sit on the couch for hours in your comfiest clothes with no agenda, just talking, maybe watching a show, and you leave that hangout thinking that was nice, that was fun, that was enjoyable, I feel fulfilled. I think a errand friend is a similar person. It's someone you feel at ease going about your life with. You don't need to put on a show or pretend that you aren't overwhelmed or anxious or struggling or juggling a million things, that you can just go about life together and leave feeling like that was a fun time. In both of these friendships, nothing's like flashy, right? It's very simple. You feel safe being around them and your true self. You don't need to perform. And you feel safe sharing your opinions or views or the random things that you laugh about that maybe aren't. Maybe if somebody knew you laughed about that thing, they would view you differently. So as much as we might think that someone can walk into our life and suddenly that's just how we're going to spend time with them, I think we have a couple of mindset shifts that need to happen. And then we need to take some action. We need to put ourselves out there and we need to be couch friends. And that's what's going to attract in these type of friendships that you want. Now, the first mindset shift I want you to consider is that it is easier to be couch friends with a really established friend. That's just going to flow more naturally. I think we often think of our established friends as potential couch friends if they're not already, because we already have all this history and vulnerability built up with them, because we've already existed at some point in our lives with them as the messy, imperfect versions of ourselves. For example, I think a lot of people opt towards siblings, and it would make sense, right? When you were very little as a kid, this sibling saw you getting in trouble with your parents. They saw you messing up a social interaction and being really upset about it. I mean, maybe they watched it firsthand. They saw that you were a super messy human, and every week when you were supposed to have your room clean, you shoved everything in the closet to get that green check from your parents to go do whatever you wanted to do on the weekend, but they knew everything was in the closet. So it makes sense. They've already seen this messy side of you. Or maybe you're thinking, oh, well, it's easier to lean in with my friends that I've had since elementary, middle, high school. And those were people who came over to your house, who saw your parents ground you or correct you. They were people who saw you at school when you had that really awkward social interaction and then you ran off, maybe crying about it. They saw the time that you backed into a pole in your car when you were 16 and you had to call your parents for the first time and report an accident. Like, they've seen you be imperfect, even if it's now been a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. Maybe as you grew up and you got older, you hid this imperfect, true part of yourself away. If you listened to this episode and you thought, oh, well, I want more of this couch friend energy, I'm going to lean in and I'm going to opt for those people. I'm just trying to tell you, it's not necessarily that those people themselves, like that friendship is something special that we can't recreate. It's just that you lived that imperfect life with these people. So it feels easier even 2 decades later to let them back in, because in your brain, you're thinking like, well, I've already kind of lived this way with them. I already have proof that they would accept me this way. Another thing I see is people thinking that they're, let's say, college friends, that there was something super magical about those friendships. And it's not that that friendship is magical necessarily, or that that specific person is something above and beyond what you can ever find again. It's that if you really think about it, you and we were different people when we were in college. Like, I was a different person. I'll be the first to say that, right? 20-year-old Alex didn't have money for an Uber if I had to go to a doctor's appointment and my eyes were dilated and I couldn't drive home. So I had to ask a friend. 20-year-old Alex did not have money for fancy dinner party ingredients. So if I wanted people to come over, Sometimes that might mean pulling out a frozen pizza and some frozen taquitos and heating them up and serving them because I'd rather get people together than not, and having, I don't know, $100 to be able to afford nice ingredients to cook dinner now. Like that just wasn't even possible. So what did I care? I didn't need to look like I had all this money. Like nobody expected that of me back then. 20-year-old Alex did not have a big house. I lived in a little apartment with roommates. So if I wanted to get people together, sometimes I didn't have enough tables and chairs. And instead of pretending like I did or like everything was perfect, my friends would maybe just end up sitting on the floor around the coffee table. 20-year-old Alex had roommates. So let's say that I woke up on a Sunday afternoon from a nap and I went out into the living room. My roommate might have invited other friends over. And my choices were leave the house, go back to bed, or go sit on the couch and hang out with my friend and her other friends who maybe weren't like my best friends, but like people I knew. I had less control over who I let into my house. And therefore, sometimes I just had to go hang out with new people, right? I had to let them into my house where I had just woken up from a nap and had bedhead and was walking out in my ratty sweatpants. And that's just what it was. 20-year-old Alex didn't have a romantic partner. I didn't have a spouse or a boyfriend at that point. So I always had have a couple friends on speed dial where if something went wrong in my life, that's who I would call. If I got a flat tire, I had to call a friend. I couldn't pretend like I had it all together. So it's not necessarily that there was something super special about those friends that I have from college. It's more that I was a different version of myself that just didn't honestly have the resources always to pretend like I had it all together. And therefore, if I wanted to connect, I just had to let people in. And while I could think like, oh, I wish I could be 20 again so I could have those casual hangouts or this or that, the honest truth is I can choose to be that person again. I can choose to be okay just pulling things out of my freezer and serving them to people. I can choose to be okay with just sitting on the floor in my living room when people come over. I can choose to be okay with having friends of friends appear at my house and I'm in my sweatpants. Like I can choose to be this person, and so can you. Now, another mindset that I think we need to overcome before I tell you some practical ways that you can become a couch friend. Another mindset we have to overcome is this idea that if you don't have couch friends right now, it's hard to get them. It's hard to make couch friends. Like unless you find someone who really is into this energy, you're out of luck. I don't think that's true. And most of the conversation I'm seeing out there about couch friends is this idea of like, well, if you don't have one, that's okay. Not everyone has one, but like maybe someday you can have one. Like, oh, someday far out there down the road, maybe you can get close enough to someone to then open up and let them in. And that's not very enticing. If that's what we're telling people, then so many people aren't going to put the energy out there to do it because we want an instant reward, right? We're all instant gratification people. So me telling you that you can make a couch friend 5 years from now if you really commit to this one friendship is not that enticing. But if I tell you, if you kind of embody this energy, you could have some more couch friend type connections a couple months from now. Doesn't that sound more appealing? Because I truly think that's possible. But what most people are doing is kind of this traditional approach of putting your best foot forward, showing up to impress, looking like you have it all together. When you meet someone new, when you make a new friend, most people kind of go through the same pattern, right? You ask somebody to meet up for coffee and then maybe coffee again. And then maybe you go to dinner with that person, but obviously out. It might be too much to invite them over to your house. And then perhaps a walk, or you pick an activity like, oh, you want to go play pickleball together. You just slowly build up. And over time, at some point, you'll start to then chip away at this put together version of you. You'll let them see that your house is just slightly messy, or you'll admit that you can't cook, or whatever it is. You'll slowly start to chip away. And that is a totally valid way to make friends. I'm not saying don't do this or it's a bad way. I'm just offering you an alternative, because I think that because it's the traditional way that we're doing this, people think that that is maybe like the easier way. But if we're all getting really honest, it's a lot of energy to put your best foot forward, look like you have it all together, show up to impress. And then it's a lot of energy when you've spent years cultivating this friendship potentially to want to show up differently, like to chip away, to open up. That's a lot of work. It's not that it's easier. It's just that it's maybe the more normal hard is what I'd say. So let me offer you a new idea, which is that you could just lean in to this more casual couch friend type energy from the get-go when you meet someone new. And sure, that is hard, right? Because you now have to rewire that show up to impress mindset. When your brain is like, no, don't let them into your house. It's a mess. You have to talk to your brain. That's where you have to put the energy instead of panic cleaning or having invited someone over and then backtracking like, oh, sorry, today's not a good day, because you're looking around your house and you realize it's a mess. You're not telling them that, but you're like, sorry, can we reschedule? And you're just spinning in your head. Like all of those are hard. They're all energy, but which one is actually going to get you to the type of friendships that you want quicker? Like dramatic pause for effect on purpose. We're all saying we want these different types of friendships, and then we are going about it the same way we've been doing over and over and over again, where we end up with these friendships that require us to make plans and schedule time together and book friend dates 3 months in advance. And we just wish for a different outcome, but we aren't changing the steps we're taking to get there. So this new energy would be this idea of when you go to meet a new friend, it's going to be kind of awkward to invite them to do something a little more casual, a little less put together, to say, hey, why don't you come over to my house and watch a movie? Can you imagine if a new friend invited you to do that? You'd be like, whoa, right? It's uncomfortable. It's different. Or if you invited a friend to run errands with you on like your second or third friend date, but you can do it. And that is setting you up. That is setting the precedent for the type of friendship you are saying you want. And if you meet up with that person and it's awkward and it's different and it's weird and it doesn't go well, what I will say is if you lead with that energy and it doesn't go well, then I guess you can kind of let that friendship go a little sooner. You don't need to keep pushing forward. Because the alternative is you go that traditional route, you get a couple years down the line, you start to try and peel back the layers and invite your friend into your real life, and you realize they're not really that interested in that. That's not what they want. Some people don't want it. Or it's hard. They don't want to do the work to open up and be that vulnerable. And then you're bummed because you put all this effort in thinking you would peel the layer back. Like both are hard. Both have risk. Choose your heart. So now that we've talked about these mindsets overall that you need to shift, here are some that I want you to think about as you're moving through your day-to-day. Like, what does a couch friend do? How do they show up? We've already talked about this vulnerability piece, right? As the couch friend, you're going to stop trying to look like you have it all together. Now, I'm not saying 100% of the time. If you even made this shift 10%, 20%, that would have an impact. Another vulnerability piece is embracing this idea of being honest about what's going on with your life, right? If you were going to get together with a friend and it feels like a lot and you're like, hey, listen, I want you to come over and just hang out and lay on the couch, I literally will just pull things out of my freezer. Just be honest. That would be kind of the mindset of a couch friend. Another piece is the vulnerability of being okay with silence, or the vulnerability of being okay with your friendship hangout kind of feeling mundane. that you're not going to leave and have this big epic story to tell or a bunch of Instagram posts to share because all you did was lay on the couch in your sweatpants and eat popcorn. Or you sat on the couch while your friend folded their laundry while you caught up. They're not flashy. They're not catchy. And there's some vulnerability to that. So really working your brain through that piece. Another mindset of a couch friend is being a little more okay with flexibility and spontaneity. If what you want is somebody who will just kind of show up at your house and hang out sometimes, then you have to be okay with the unknown, with less planning, which also means that you need to be more okay with kind of checking in as you go along, with your friend coming over and sitting on the couch and folding laundry and you're just hanging out doing nothing and then being like, I was going to turn on a movie. Do you want to stay for that? Or are you going to go for that, right? You have to have a little more conversation because you haven't outlined the maybe terms of this hangout before you go. It's not the normal, hey, let's get together for dinner and then I have to get home and get the kids to bed. So in the moment, you need to be a little more flexible, spontaneous, conversational, check in with each other. And another piece is just kind of this idea of generosity and trust. As the couch friend, when somebody's in your space, right, you're probably going to need to have a little extra dinner, a little extra food. And you're going to have to trust that in some way, shape, or form, even if you're the house that they always come over to, that's going to come back to you, that it won't necessarily look one-to-one exact, but this friendship is providing, is equaling out in its own ways. And you have to trust that this friend has your best interest, I think, in moments where you're being inconvenienced. A lot of us don't want to be inconvenienced. We want to plan out the inconvenience. But part of kind of this couch friendship is the fact that you might be inconvenienced sometimes. Like a friend might show up at your house and you are having a great day, great energy, but they've had a terrible day. And now the energy in the house while you're all hanging out is different. And that's a little bit of an inconvenience. You might be inconvenienced that you're starting to get sleepy. This is normally when you go to bed, but they want to finish the show. And so you have to decide if you're going to stay up for 30 more minutes. Just because we haven't set every single limit beforehand and every single expectation, there are probably going to be moments where you feel a little bit like you're giving more. And I think we need to pay attention to those. The reason I'm bringing these up is I think these are great in the moment when you are with friends, whether they are couch friends or other friends. Like, how can you lean into this in this moment where maybe you're out with friends and you did have pretty set plans and on the go, some sort of spontaneity or need for flexibility, instead of getting really mad about it, how can you lean into the energy of, these are the kinds of friendships I want? Maybe you got together with a friend and it wasn't really planned friend hangout and you leave and it wasn't that exciting. It was pretty mundane and you could be upset about that. Or you could have this moment of oh, this is just one step closer to the type of friendship I want with this person, that we can do that. So I would look for those in your friendships. Now I want to close out this episode by just kind of listing off a bunch of very practical ways that you can be a couch friend, like actions you can take, ways you can set this up for yourself to start to lean into that couch friend life. One of the biggest things I see when we're talking about couch friend, errand friends, whatever, is that the more adult we become, it is harder and harder to find stretches of unstructured time. And I just want to note, is that true? Is that true? For some people, it is going to be true. If you are a parent or a caregiver or something, yes. Yes. And let's all be honest with ourselves about the amount of time that we are just, let's say, sitting around watching TV, the amount of time we are scrolling, the amount of time that we are folding laundry, but don't want to do it in silence. So we have a podcast on. We actually have, I really think, a lot of time that is available for connection, unstructured or slightly structured, right? Like having to do the laundry. We have that time. So I want to list off a bunch of ideas of these pockets of times, these ways you can integrate people. And please do not feel like you have to integrate all of these. That would be so overwhelming. But maybe pick one and try it out. See how it changes your friendship or how it can potentially create a new friendship with the type of energy that you're hoping for. So first, I want to talk about how to be a couch friend and use your home. The first piece is just the idea that when you have someone over to your home, think about the energy that you bring. If you are constantly waiting on them, if you're like, oh, no, I'll get that for you, that is not how you would treat a roommate. If you had a roommate, if you had somebody who was in your house, you would not be doing everything for them all day. At least I hope not. Like if they wanted water, they would get up and get their own water. And so when I talk about like inviting someone into your home and the energy you bring, think about this. Like, can you just show them where the water cups are the first time they come over and tell them, hey, if you're hungry, this is where I keep the snacks? Because that creates this space where somebody really can relax in your home. And that's something that they can't change that. You have to embody that energy. Another one would be thinking about how panicked you are about your house being perfectly clean. And honestly, something I do is if I have people over, like my couch friend type people, I might be cleaning while they're here. They might come over and I might fold a load of laundry, or I might be organizing a room, or I might be doing the dishes. And I might just kind of move around my house. There might be points where we're laying on the couch and points where I get up and clean some things that are sitting out. It's very much like, oh, well, this is how I would be acting if you weren't here, versus feeling like because somebody's in my house, I have to sit on the couch and just talk to them. And that's it until they leave. Another thing you could try is giving a little bit more of an open house vibe. There's a variety of ways you can do this. You could just create a one-time offer like, hey, this Sunday from 8 to noon, feel free to stop by if you want. I'll just be around my house hanging out. It could be reoccurring every Sunday from every Sunday morning. Feel free to stop by. I'm just around. Maybe you really love this energy and you kind of just have an open house policy with friends. You're like, just come on by anytime. And that could be with new friends. It could be with established friends. It could be with certain friends. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but having that would create a little bit more of this energy in your life. Another option would be welcoming in friends of friends. So if you've invited a friend over to hang out and watch a movie, trying to make it clear to them, like, hey, if you have another friend you want to come over and have watch this movie, invite them over. That goes back to that thing I was saying about college, Alex, right? That's something that would have happened. I can choose to be that person again. Another super tangible example would be serving leftovers from the meal the night before, or something. I actually just did this the other night. I told friends, like, it was kind of a last minute get together. Like, what are we going to do for dinner? And I said, listen, I have a bunch of stuff in my fridge that needs to be used. So if somebody wants to pick up pizza dough and cheese and sauce, I'm just going to pull the random things I have out of my fridge and let's do pizza. No joke. I did this the other day. And I mean, I'm not serving them any bad food. Nothing's bad, but it's like, oh, okay, well, that bell pepper's been in there for over a week. It needs to be used. This jar of olives has been open for a few weeks. We can throw that in there, right? I literally just went through my fridge and pulled out anything that was a pizza topping without having to go to the store. And that's what we used for dinner. I feel like that is definitely couch friend energy. Another one would be something as simple as, instead of freaking out and feeling like you need to have serving dishes or platters when somebody comes over, just serve things on the friggin' sheet pan. Like, here you go. It could be simple shifts like that. Another idea when it comes to your home would be opening up your backyard. Maybe you don't love the idea of people being in your house all the time, but talking to some friends or some neighbors and saying like, hey, you guys are always welcome to open the gate and come play in the backyard. And whether you go out and join them or they're just in the backyard or you're not home, just an idea. That would create that kind of come and go chill energy. Something I love to do, I've talked about this on the podcast, we love to have people stay with us, like friends stay with us. And I think a lot of people assume that we're doing that with only our closest, most established friends, but that is definitely not the case. We have had, some of Michael's coworkers, like people he knows and their spouses, but I've never met. I mean, until they show up at my house, we've had those people stay at our house. I have a friend who was a very new friend. I'd only known her a few months, and she was kind of in this transitionary period. She needed to have somewhere to stay. And Michael and I actually weren't even home. We were out of town for the week. And I was like, you can just come stay at our house for us. You're welcome. The guest room is open. Here's a key. Just stay at our house. Some more couch friend energy would be this idea of not always feeling like if you're going to have a gathering, right? If it's like, oh, we want to get everybody together, like you have to host and entertain and put together this entire production. And instead talking to those friends and saying like, okay, well, I can have my house. We can do it here, but somebody else has to deal with the food. Somebody has to deal with the decor, and somebody has to send out the invites. You don't have to do it all. And having that kind of casual, chill energy is one step closer to having those more simple connections where you don't feel like you need to impress them, where it's just ease. Like we are all here, we are all together, we are all doing the work to get together. Another really easy couch friend energy, I didn't write this down, but I'm just now remembering it or thinking about it, is a good number of our friends, we actually kind of have this set expectation. We've talked about this. We're like, the default is sweatpants. Anytime you come to my house, if you listening, come to my house, the default is sweatpants. Unless I tell you otherwise, the expectation is you are welcome in your sweatpants or whatever you want to wear to my house at all times, always. I will tell you if I am doing something where you need to put on jeans or something fancier. Otherwise, always feel like you need to show up in your sweatpants. And kind of leaning into this couch friend energy, even with new friends, sometimes people will come over to my house and I will be in sweatpants and they'll show up like looking nicer. And I have to be okay with the fact that I look really dressed down and they maybe wore a sundress to come over and have coffee or brunch or whatever. But this goes to that leaning in, right? It's a little awkward when I do that, because I don't think they quite believed me when I said, feel free to wear your sweatpants. They're not used to this, but I am going to lead with that energy. And now I have friendships where people show up a couple months after we've met each other to my house in their sweatpants. So you can do that too. Some more practical ways are with other parents, like parents wanting to hang out with parents. Some of this is stuff I've seen. I have talked plenty on this podcast about the fact that I do not have any kids at the moment. Even as a childless person, honestly, some of this stuff I do with my friends who have kids, but parents can do this together, right? This idea of kind of getting together, combining forces on dinner, doing bath time, and maybe bedtime at somebody's house. I saw a reel. I wish I could remember who it was from, but I saw a reel this weekend of a mom talking about how one of her favorite ways to kind of have that couch friend energy with her friends is to do weekend mid-mornings together. So they do breakfast, all that kind of stuff. And then one person will come to the other person's house. The kids will play, they'll do lunch together, and then they'll put both of the kids down for naps. So now the kids are sleeping in your house or your friend's house, and everybody can have kind of like couch hangout time. But doing this, of course, requires a certain mindset. Like it's vulnerable. Your kiddo may not go down as easily, especially if you're at your friend's house. There may be some crying or some fussing because you're trying to navigate this new environment. You might be asking for help. You might be looking at your friend and saying like, hey, I thought that this room would work, but do you have a darker room in your house? And you have to embody this energy of being open to the fact that it may not be the smoothest of nap times, but it might be worth it for an hour or two of just laying around in your sweatpants on your friend's couch while your kiddos nap. Some other practical ideas. I know I've talked a lot about kind of in your home. So if you really are not into doing this in your home, then let me give you some other ideas. Maybe you own a business or you have a space or you're a manager or something like that. And I'm thinking specifically, I have a friend who owns a floral shop. She has a couple locations. She could easily tell her friends like, hey, I just through an extra desk in my office. If anybody's working from home or working remote, whatever you're doing, and you want to come work from that desk, it's open. Whether that's certain days of the week or all days or whatever, like just stop by. You're welcome to work at that desk. We can kind of chat in between working. We can go on a little walk or grab a coffee, but come on in. It's an option. Maybe a way to kind of embody that couch friend energy is you committing to go to a third space, whether that is a library or a community center or a coffee shop, local farmer's market or a park. And being there regularly and letting people that you know that you'll be there certain times. This specifically makes me think of Michael's Uncle Larry, somebody who passed away recently, actually. And this came up over and over and over again at his service. But he used to go and kind of be a regular, especially after retirement, at this one coffee shop. He was always there all the time, it sounds like. But his friends knew that he was normally there every morning reading his paper and drinking his coffee. And sometimes people would message him and, set up can I join you for coffee on Tuesday? But more often than not, from the sounds of it, people would just show up in the morning hoping to catch him there. And then they would sit down and have a nice little conversation. And a lot of people knew that's where he always was, and they could always meet up with him there. Now, I've talked about the errand friend, which I think is similar energy to a couch friend. And so much of this, like letting people into this part of your life, is just starting to communicate that, telling friends like, hey, I normally run errands on Tuesday nights, Sunday mornings, whenever you run errands. If you ever want to go together, save up some errands and let's go do it. Starting to invite people like, hey, I have to go to the store and do a really big haul. Do you want to go with me? Some other ideas are like oil changes. You could talk with a friend and go get your oils changed at the same time on the same frequency and have a standing quarterly date where you drop your cars off, but then you both leave and go on a walk. There's so many ways to kind of like work the errands in, and it depends on the flexibility you have. I have a friend who has 2 kiddos. I've talked about this on social media before. And it's kind of like a couch friend, errand friend combo, but I try and go down once a month if I can. She's a stay-at-home mom. I just show up and I fold into their life and we do whatever we're going to do that day, whether it is playing at home with the kids or going to little gym or doing grocery pickup. Like I'm just there. And that's how we hang out. Doing whatever, sometimes go to the library, but it's never big fancy activities that are planned because I'm there. I just do whatever they were going to do that day with her and the girls. Another idea would be commuting. Now, if you had a really long commute and you had a neighbor or a friend or a person who also had to maybe commute from the suburbs to the city, again, this goes to the inconvenience, but you could tell that person, anytime you're at my house by 7:30 a.m., we can ride in together. That's some couch friend, errand friend energy of just like folding each other into life. You might now have 45 minutes, an hour to just sit in the car and talk. You don't really worry about it. Maybe once a month they show up and you ride in together. Maybe it's more often. For people that live far away, some of that couch friend energy is doing something. Maybe we didn't all do this, but I definitely did this when I was more of that 20-year-old version of Alex, which is the idea of kind of like FaceTiming while you do nothing. You want to catch up with your friend a couple times a week, you just call, whether it's the same time or a different time, and you're chatting, but it's kind of the same as if they were just in the house with you and you were going about your life. These are all things we can choose to do, is what I'm trying to say. They are little shifts. And some of those might sound terrible to you and others might be like, yeah, I could do that, be a little uncomfortable, but I'd try it. And some of those you might have been like, oh my gosh, why have I never thought about doing that? I totally want to do that with my friends. But I guess the summary of this episode is when we're all out there looking for this elusive friend that we think we could have, and whether that's like magic, because they just already have leaned into this energy and somehow it's going to rub off on us, or that we wish our established friendships were this way, whatever that is, really it's us. You and I need to look at the energy that we are putting out there, because when we put that out there, we're probably going to attract it back. And it's okay to mix things up. We don't have to do it the traditional way. And in fact, I think doing it the traditional way quite often is holding us back from what we want. And then we're discouraged, so we don't keep trying it. And if we just took some risks and put ourselves out there, that we could lean in much quicker and end up with these more relaxed, casual, no need to impress, can do anything together, feel accepted kind of friendships. So I want to challenge you this week to try one small shift. It doesn't need to be something huge. Just try one little thing. There's no way, if you don't do any of these things, this is not going to switch overnight. But you can make some really small, tiny shifts. You can try some things out, try and shift your perspective or your energy, try and see those places where you can allow for a little more vulnerability or spontaneity. And instead of being like, inconvenience, you're like, actually, there's going to be some inconvenience with these types of friendships I want. And I can see that now. And like, that's okay. I can move through this. And if you are out there and you feel like there are more ideas for ways that you kind of have this couch friend, errand friend energy that you do in your life, there's by no means an exhaustive list. I would love to hear about them. Send them my way. Because if we can compile a bigger list, it'll give people more ideas, more ways to try, and then everybody can find the ways that work for them. And with that, I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Friendship IRL. I am so honored to have these conversations with you, but don't let the chat die here. Send me a voice message. I created a special website just to chat with you. You can find it at alex.chat. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle @itsAlexAlexander. Or go ahead and leave a review wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. Now, if you want to take this conversation a step further, send this episode to a friend. Tell them you found it interesting and use what we just talked about as a conversation starter the next time you and your friend hang out. No need for a teary goodbye. I'll be back with a new episode next week.